So, as a marketer, speaking from a marketer's perspective, I think we're all pretty familiar with the traditional marketing playbook of identifying, what's the business goal, developing a product offer, and then from there bringing that product offer to market. So with this initiative that I'm going to talk about today, we really kind of flipped that on its head and started with what is the human problem that we're wanting to address, and then developing a campaign to really address the needs that we uncovered, as well as bringing in community partners to understand, what does that human problem really look like on the local level. So starting off with the data, we partnered with TransUnion to develop a study called the State of Financial Stability in the Southeast. So if you scan the QR codes that are on your table on the flyers there, you can get the full study in detail. But essentially what that study goes over is really to understand, what are the real human problems facing the members and residents of the communities that we serve. And the data was clear, so I'm going to talk specifically about Atlanta data. We did do data for Jacksonville, Orlando, and Atlanta, which are our key markets that we serve in the states of Florida and Georgia. But focusing on Atlanta, the data was pretty clear. So rising housing costs, transportation, loans, as well as just inflationary pressures in general, were really reshaping the daily lives of residents in Atlanta. And to give you some more specific Atlanta data, student loan balances were more prevalent in this city than really a lot of the Southeast, any other city in the Southeast, and a lot of cities nationally. So that was pretty eye-opening, as well as residents are facing much higher housing costs in the city of Atlanta as well. The other eye-opening thing was a lot of residents that we polled, and we had a sample size of a little over 3,000 people that we surveyed in those markets, were that they thought this debt was manageable even though they were spending more than they were earning, and they were also having a hard time keeping up with bills. So I think that's a big opportunity that if people think that's manageable, where our organization and many of yours here today can really come in and address that via financial education. So that really led to a big opportunity for all of us. So, the study that we're talking about here today was really a starting point for us to ask, not what product do we want to promote, but more starting with what human problem do we want to solve for, and then how are we going to address that human problem. And that really kind of guided everything that we did. So to give you an example of how powerful it is to really define that human problem, leveraging community partners, we were really lucky to have Courtney English, who is the Chief of Staff for the City of Atlanta Mayor, to talk about how the VyStar study that we did really aligns with a lot of what you're seeing here in Atlanta. So with that, I'll bring up Courtney if you want to say a few words.
Thank you all. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. How are you? Excellent. My name is Courtney English. I'm the Chief of Staff to Mayor. It's a pleasure. Can y'all hear me? All right. It's a pleasure with you all this morning. This data is incredibly telling. It's also incredibly shocking. It's also incredibly heartbreaking when you think about what's actually happening on the back end of those numbers. Currently in the city of Atlanta, the mayor has rolled out an ambitious plan to close the gap on what we call a tale of two cities. And what this data clearly shows us is that there are some folks in the city of Atlanta who have more month than they have money. They have more month than they have money. What that means is they're grappling with, of course, paying their bills, paying off their debts. But what that also means is that they're dealing with toxic stress that gets into their bones, that eats at their psyche. It means oftentimes their kids are going to school hungry. It means oftentimes they don't have access to fresh food. It means oftentimes they're moving around from one place to another chasing affordability because they don't have a stable or affordable roof over their head. And that's a tragedy. And so what this mayor said is that we're going to do something about it. We're going to roll out an ambitious plan to close the gap on the tale of two cities, and we call that our Neighborhood Reinvestment Initiative. We're going to invest in things like affordable housing. The mayor has a goal of building 20,000 units of affordable housing over an 8-year period. We are at 13,000 units today. That means we're ahead of schedule by a little bit. It means we're going to take care of our unsheltered population. But it also means we're going to do work to ensure that the people who have helped build in Atlanta, who have lived in Atlanta, can afford to stay in Atlanta as Atlanta continues to grow. And so it's certainly exciting to see a different take on the data, getting into the minds, into the psyches, to truly understand what's happening behind the customers that you all hope to serve, because you all offer products that can help lift folks up. You all offer services that can help build stability. You all offer services that can help build wealth. And ultimately, that's what everybody wants. We want to create a city of healthy, whole neighborhoods where folks can work their way up the economic ladder and ultimately live a choice-filled life. And so that's what this conference is about. Let's turn the data into some action. Let's turn the data into some decisions. And let's go help some folks. God bless y'all.
So good morning. Thank you so much, Courtney. Really appreciate you being here. My name is Dana Karzan, and I am the Chief Marketing Officer at VyStar Credit Union. So as Jonathan talked about a few minutes ago, you know, as marketers, we know data is only powerful if we can turn it into action. So when we completed this study, the goal wasn't just to publish insights. It was really to build a strategy rooted in understanding and solving human problems. The study included thousands of residents across Jacksonville, Orlando, and Atlanta, data from TransUnion, and insights from more than 400 nonprofit partners. And we also leveraged the United Way's ALICE report. So for hopefully most of you are familiar with that, but it's really a report on what we would call financially vulnerable working families. The picture was really consistent. As we've mentioned, as Courtney mentioned, as Jonathan mentioned, you know, people are really under financial strain. We've talked about this idea of toxic stress. And finances, as we found out, are really the top stressor, even above things like your job, health. Finances is coming to the top of the list. And we're also finding people don't have the tools or confidence to really deal with it. So we asked ourselves, really, how can a credit union, our credit union, be a catalyst for financial stability? And our answer is what we call VyStar Debt Payoff Challenge. It's a 12-week program designed not as a campaign, but a community-focused, action-oriented program. We activated our community and government partners, many who are with us on this panel, while also tapping into our capabilities to provide tools and advice, both to members of our credit union, but also residents in the community. This is not just about people that are members. And for example, we provided tools such as budgeting tools, online, in-person education, webinars, and a peer community where participants could support each other. So instead of leading with a product, we lead with empowerment. So before we share the results, we want you to hear from organizations who live these issues every single day and are really working alongside of us in the community. So I'm excited to introduce our panelists. We have Alvin Glymph, Senior Vice President of Strategic Partnerships at the United Way of Greater Atlanta. We have Ashley Stewart, Executive Director of freerent.org, and Donell Woodson, Executive Director for the City of Atlanta Housing Help Center. So we're going to kick off with one question. So we'll start with you, Alvin. How do the findings from VyStar's study reflect what you're seeing on the ground? And what solutions has your organization implemented in response?
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. So the reality is I looked at the data from the report. It is amazing how well it aligns to the data that we're seeing. And so part of what we offer to our community is data. You mentioned Alice. And so for those in the room, I highly recommend you go on a website, uniteforalice.org. And so ALICE is an acronym. It stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, but Employed. So people who own something, not making enough money, but they are working. And so as we think about the data that you share, the data that we see, the reality is that there's a huge segment of people who are doing things the right way. They are working, they are planning, they are saving. But as your data suggests, as Courtney mentioned, unfortunately, things just, they're not able to keep up. Inflation, the cost of living is rising at a rate beyond what people's salaries are. And so as we're offering that data, the other data that we offer is our 211 data that gives you a sense of what's happening right now. 211 is a call center. So people dial 211 and they call for their emerging needs and we direct them to resources. The two needs that come up most often, rental assistance and some type, it's either food or assistance with electrical payments. And so that data, along with our child wellbeing index, are the data that we offer to our community to say, hey, use this data to make data-driven decisions and build interventions. So that's one of the things that we do as a response. The other thing is I'm sitting next to one of our partners that we invest in. And so as we invest in organizations like freerent.org, it's because we know that we can't do it all. We've never done it all as we met crises. So how can we take our resources, invest in organizations that have shared values, that are using our data to ultimately make a difference? And I would say the last thing that we do is we are aligning with systems and organizations and counties and city agencies like the city, because the reality is so many of our families are not meeting one issue at a time. When you're talking about not able to pay rent or pay transportation or childcare, that throws a whole family into flux. And so how can we align our systems and resources so that we can work with partners like City of Atlanta so that we can help these families and meet the crisis together? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely agree. Thank you, Alvin, and thank you, Donell, for being here too. Atlanta is a beautiful city of collaboration, and I think the stage and the partnership that we've developed, even with VyStar, really shows the multi-prong approach that's required to really get at the heart of these issues that everyday families are facing. So at freerent.org, our mission is to provide rental assistance and wraparound support services that help families create a pathway to long-term financial stability. And so what that looks like in practice is supporting those Alice families, working households who are renting, but who face some unexpected hardship that has them at risk of losing their housing. And so we provide rental assistance, direct financial relief, anywhere from 6 to 12 months for those families, and then we also pair that with financial empowerment programming. It's a combination of one-on-one coaching, pairing our families with pro bono financial advisors, working with partners like VyStar to have community engagements and events and education sessions together. And I think what we're discovering and what's important in this work is a few things that have been mentioned. I think one, as the study shows and what we see daily, the stressor of finances is real for families. And until you relieve that stress, A lot of these financial empowerment principles can be hard for a family to work through. And so at Free Rent, when we're matching that direct rental assistance, we can see visibly the stress of our families go down. And when that cognitive stress goes down, that emotional stress goes down, then we can really talk about concepts that are difficult to talk about with a family who's always been in financial crisis. Talking about your budget, talking about your credit score, talking about your debt, which can be things that feel really overwhelming. That relief of the assistance then kind of opens that gate for families to really take that next step. And so for us who are in this world working with these families, I think it's important to recognize that need and to recognize the time it takes for families to build trust around money and build trust around financial institutions, because they're so used to being in that survival mode, in that crisis. And then I also think it just takes a multi-pronged engagement of working with organizations, working one-on-one with families, and not giving up. Taking those 3, 6, 9, 12 months and beyond to work with the family to really ensure they have the time necessary to recover and then rebuild, and not forget that step of recovery and relief. And so I think just the work that we're doing here, talking about it, bringing the issues to life, it really is apparent in so many families. And I'll end with a final piece as well. I think income advancement is really key. Yes, we absolutely need more affordable housing. Yes, we need more financial empowerment programs. But I think a strain that we see with families is that they're underemployed. They're working full-time, 2 jobs, really trying, but it seems that income isn't keeping up with inflation and rising costs. And so I think for us as an organization and as a community, that's something we're going to have to continue to work on, is how can we provide our families with access to more employment, more income that's only going to help lift them out of where they are today.
Yeah, thanks to the panel colleagues here, not just for being on the panel, but for their tireless partnership. Dana, thank you as well for your leadership. The mayor often talks about Atlanta as a group project, and that is not just intended to be cliche. I think evidence is what you're seeing here today in my colleagues as they share what they are doing in their organization, but also what VyStar is showing in the data. It takes us moving out of our silos into proximity. I often say that proximity matters. You cannot understand things from afar, and so really what the data is pointing to is the need to get proximate. What my colleagues are pointing to in their specific areas is how proximity really begins to remove those barriers. My grandparents would say, know your lane and stay in it. And so I think what we're finding is, while the group project is necessary, also understanding how your specific role, talent, and skill for your company can be a vital component of solving these issues, right? And so that proximity has meant for us that, you heard Chief of Staff Courtney, I'll just use first name there, point to the kind of macro vision for the mayor of the Neighborhood Revitalization Initiative. That kind of ground proximity, the granular level work, for us means that my office's task is to take data that often has a very negative narrative, finance data, the data of 1 in 3 residents in our neighborhood clusters being rent burdened. That means spending well over 50% of their income just for housing, right? And don't add childcare into that, right? And so being able to shift the narrative around that data in a way that empowers those of us that are in this room today to understand how we can align our work in a way that not just meets the immediate need, meaning the crisis moment that they're living in, but produces long-term sustainability, right? And so our work on the ground, partnering with these amazing folks on this panel, it does things like for a family to Valentine's Days ago, in 24, we had a family, a mother and husband and wife, sorry, with 2 children. A storm came to hit Atlanta. The tree fell on their home. The wife is attempting to protect the husband. She shields him with her body. The tree crashes through the home and kills the husband. Now, they have lived in this house for over a decade. They have been, married for 30 plus years. And in one tragic moment, right, that upended. She was a stay-at-home mom. He was the breadwinner, covering for the children as well. And then suddenly, they are now in this completely other world. It took the stabilization of staff who do trauma-informed care to step in as the city, stabilize the moment, get them in temporary housing, identify the necessary partner to move them into short-term and then long-term housing, but to do the wraparound services and support that Ashley mentioned that their team does, and with the partnership of Alvin, right? So this group project isn't just about one solo answer. I also often say you can't solve poverty by filling in the blank with one answer, right? We would come up with a myriad of responses, and that myriad of responses is what's necessary here, right? And so you go to the emergency room to address an acute pain point. Once stabilized, there are steps that you have to take after. I believe the data is showing that VyStar is onto something about the steps that we take after stabilization.
Thank you so much. And I wish we could spend all morning talking. I think so much insights from all of you. Thank you for all that you're doing. Thank you for your partnership. Like you said, this is not just a simple one size fits all answer. There's a lot of areas that we need to focus on. It's a jigsaw puzzle to help solve, but thank you all for the work that you're doing. And before I bring Mary up on stage to just share a little bit of the results we've seen from the debt payoff challenge, I want to just ask all of you just to think about how you can step up as leaders in your communities at the local level. Bring together amazing folks that you have already leading in your communities, your nonprofit organizations, your city government, county, state governments, to help address the multiple issues that are facing those in the community. We're so proud in the Southeast, in cities like Atlanta, with the growth, the development, the amazing things that are happening in this city. But we also can't forget there's many families that are being left behind. And it's really on all of us to step up, show leadership, provide tools, assistance, solutions to these multiple problems to help address those needs and bring everybody up with us all. So we'll appeal to that. I'm going to ask Mary to come on stage and share a little bit of the results we've already seen from this work.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you, panel, for your insights. Mary Gustafson with VyStar Credit Union. I think after doing all this research and the study, we saw these results and we couldn't just stand by and do nothing. We felt like we need to help community, we need to do something. So in response to it, we launched our That Payoff Challenge. It was the multi-channel campaign that was addressing exactly those needs of our community to help reduce that, to help them with budgeting. So we did a lot of things. We tried to really give resources to the people that struggling with debt. We were doing the biweekly tips. We were linking to the resources that our partners have in the community so they know where to find them. We linked to the calculators. We did webinars, and all in like 2-3 months, we were really focusing and giving people what they need to reduce that. And results, honestly, just were amazing. We didn't expect as much. We actually had over 40,000 participants and entries from the challenge. We saw $23 million reduced in debt. That is just mind-blowing to us. We saw that there is a need, and we were able to help people and actually measure it. In addition to that, in public relations, we saw also that it was picked up. It was very relevant. We saw 84 mentions. We saw $3.7 million in publicity value. And what is also very interesting, that out of those 40,000 participants, 19% were not even VyStar members. It was those people in the community that really needed our help, and they would go and find those resources, even if they were not part of our credit union. We also created exclusive Facebook group where we allowed people to share their tips and share with the community what worked for them. They cheered each other. They were part of the group, and we really saw that it worked and helped people feel like there is no judgment, we are helping, and we are helping you reduce that. After all of this, I want to say that it was incredibly great campaign. We are learning a lot from it. We are continuing this work. We're actually doing a couple of webinars in terms of the housing affordability because we saw that members who joined the challenge, they actually addressed that. That was one of the biggest issues there. And we also tested their financial health scores before and after the challenge, and we saw that they were more financially stable. So we already see that this is working. I think I want to say just thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, panel, for joining all the resources and all the amazing work you do in the community. Yeah, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask us. Thank you.
Thanks. So we do have, since we have the panel here, we're actually ahead of schedule. So if anyone has any questions, feel free. I think we probably could run a mic out to you.
Were you able to, as part of the research that was done around this, talk to the participants either during or after to hear like direct feedback from them and roll that into like the next campaign, for example?
Yes, so we actually, not listed on here, was we did a series with a local news station where we followed 8 different members that went through their journey. So we had a school teacher, small business, military couple, etc. And we were able to see, the cool thing is, we do these campaigns and you address needs and you're hoping that you're actually making a change. But what was really cool to see is looking at the Facebook group or following those 8 people through the TV segments is they did actually take our advice. So they each had a unique situation. We were able to help them each reduce debt. And when we're saying they're more financially confident, it's not just the score. We saw their loan balances go down. People were able to pay off their credit cards. So definitely we're capturing all of their feedback through testimonials. The Facebook group started at 0 and we're a little over 3,800 members now, and they're constantly, that group is maintaining, it's evergreen. So they're talking about, hey, I was able to pay off my car this month, doing great, or was doing great and then I got into a car accident and now I'm struggling, but I'm able to keep going forward, and people will like send encouraging tips.
Thank you for your question. I just wanted to add one piece is reaching out to people, especially around this debt issue. There's a lot of shame, and people are a little bit reluctant to talk about debt. And I think one of the things we're learning and trying to think about as we move forward is this idea around, I think in the financial services, we always talk about good or bad debt, right? And to actually think about it more from the context of manageable debt. Like, there isn't good and bad debt. That sounds very judgmental. That sounds like a moral judgment, right? But it's really around manageable and how much capacity you have for debt. And like, debt can also be very helpful. You think about situations where Maybe debt will allow you to afford a vehicle to get you to work or to get you to a better job, right? We talked about some of those income opportunities, right? So it's, in the financial services, we're really kind of reminding ourselves to kind of step away from that judgment and talk about manageable debt and help people get away from that kind of shaming side so that they can come in, get the assistance, and make the little steps at a time to kind of get to the bigger change overall in the debt management.
Can I add to this? I think one of the things we talk a lot about is dignity and identity. And essentially what both Jonathan and Dana are pointing at here is not just the tool or the mechanism that can help solve the issue, but it's infusing dignity and identity into that, right? That shifts the narrative of what people see when they hear about, debt consolidation or debt relief programs, right? And I think the narrative we believe about people in place, it matters because it impacts how we go. Same is so for those who are looking for the resource, right? It impacts if they go to it or not, if they see dignity or and identity in it. So removing the scarlet letter that gets stamped on your head to get the service, doing that extra work is really helpful, right? And so his admonishment to go back to your cities and neighborhoods and municipalities and ask those questions about the work that you're doing really allows you to create these tools that address how you give people access to dignity and identity.
Thank you. I'm John Mukitwana from ESL, Federal Credit Union in the Rochester region. I'm curious, this is exciting, clearly not a typical kind of credit union operation, so I'm curious about, from VyStar's standpoint, how you organized to do this initiative. Was it from your marketing team? Did you get a third party? So a little bit about what was behind, what made this happen. And then related question, what's next? Is there a plan, kind of follow-up, similar initiative, or anything else?
Yeah, definitely. So I can talk and Dana chime in as well, Mary. But where this came from was a year and a half ago now. There was a Wallet Hub survey and Forbes survey in which Atlanta, Jacksonville, and Orlando, which are our key markets, were all in the top 10 cities as having the most financially distressed residents. So that was eye-opening to us, and we did a savings challenge to address that last year, which was really successful. But we really wanted to dig into why people are financially distressed and really at the local level, because you hear a lot of national stats. But in Atlanta, like we heard a lot from the city today, there are very specific problems to Atlanta. There are very specific problems to Jacksonville, Orlando, et cetera. And there are some overlapping commonalities that we find, which are on this board here, if you read the study. So that's where it came from. And from there, we partnered with TransUnion and the United Way. So the United Way, Alice's data was super helpful. They have a lot of data around community and market data. We have over 1 million members, so we have a lot of member data in terms of like how they are struggling, increasing their debt, decreasing discretionary income, credit line balances, how is that looking? And then we also were able to partner with a research vendor to help us kind of compile all these inputs from Alice, TransUnion, and us to help us draft and poll over 3,000 people from those 3 markets, and then draft the study from there with our inputs. So again, it was kind of bringing together, and in addition to that, I didn't mention, we polled over 400 community partners. So freerent.org, for instance, and some other organizations that we sponsor in all of those markets, we asked them, what are you seeing at the local level to your audiences, or what are your audiences experiencing? So we had all these inputs, and then we worked with a vendor to kind of compile that along with the survey results to come up with this study. And then from there were actionable insights we were able to share with our community partners, organizations like yourselves, and then our teams in marketing to determine, okay, we did this study, but now what are we going to do about it? So it was very interesting to see. And the city of Atlanta, very eager. They are already doing things. So part of it too is educating people on what's already being done and resources that are out there that you may not be aware of that can help you as well.
And I wanted to add a little bit as well. In terms of that payoff challenge, I think our credit union is a bit unique in terms of how we do financial wellness. We call it financial fitness in our credit union. that it comes from marketing. We actually organized the whole financial wellness committee because we recognize that in our company, every department has some kind of piece of financial wellness. So what we do, we get together, and that's where we collaborate, and we come up with the ideas of the study, why we are doing it, what we need to include. We incorporate all our partners. We make sure that, we include everyone and they know what's going on, and that really helped with that committee, and it's marketing who leads it, and we are the ones who push these things out.
I will just add one little bit, thank you, from the team, because you guys just said what I was going to say, but I would just say one aspect. Having worked in financial services for, I would say, the big banks for a long time, I think one of the things that we really focus on in the credit union is that we're here to actually improve the communities we work with, and that we look for solutions instead of selling, matching products to customers. We really look for solutions, and so we really studied this and brought the insights about what really are the problems out there in the community. And these partners, we don't just get together for the debt pay-up challenge. These are partners we work with all year round on different challenges and supporting them, volunteering with them, but also working together to solve the issues they're seeing in the communities too. So I will just say, and it's great to have another credit union a person in the audience here, that this is what we do every day to make a difference.
I just want to really commend VyStar and their approach. So what you see here is, for United Way, it's a huge challenge to get data like Alice and disseminate it out into the community. We know that the more we can help people appreciate that, in the state of Georgia, there's 11% of people who are below the poverty line, but there's another 35% of our families who are Alice, who are struggling, right? And so to get that type of information to help people appreciate, it's not an 11% thing, it's more like a 45% thing, helps people advocate and talk about this issue differently. But the other thing I'd like to lift up is that their approach to looking at data is not just at the regional level, not at the state level, not at the city level, but even willing to get into the neighborhood level. Because it's that level, as Donell talked about being proximate, it's also about being granular, right? Because looking at the data, just where we're at right now, I pulled up our child well-being index data. Where we're sitting right now, the percentage of people who are cost burdened in terms of their housing, 20%. You go 3 blocks up, it's more like 45%, right? And so being able to kind of design your interventions with a customized approach is what I appreciate, is how they're looking at the data, because that's really how we're going to make a difference. Because it's not about a cookie cutter approach, it's about helping families, helping communities, and meeting them where they are.
Hi, I had a question about the data. You said that people participating were like over 90% or so were not members. So is the data from just your membership, was that self-reported as far as the payoff money there for the 23 million? Would it be even more?
I think Mary can answer that.
Yeah, it's actually only from members. So 19% were non-members, but we measured only for those who were members. So we had their accounts, and whenever they joined the challenge, and after they joined the challenge. So you should understand that it probably could have been even more, because some people joined it for, I don't know, like 2-3 weeks, and maybe like saved, not saved, but reduced that by maybe like $200, and others by much more because they've been in the challenge a little bit longer. But on average, our members saved about $1,000. They reduced that by $1,000 on average. I think a little bit more.
Yeah. And that's just now, so we'll continue to track this to see a year from now, what is that number like? Because we're hopefully after the challenge, they'll maintain that.
Well, thank you all.
I I would just say, and then just to be clear, the study was not members. So it was random populations of the 3 cities that we mentioned, Orlando, Jacksonville, and Atlanta. And 3,000 altogether was the number surveyed.
Can I jump? You shouldn't have given a preacher's son the mic. I think one thing that I want to admonish and charge is not just the, again, crisis-oriented solution, right? We solve poverty, we solve what I see in this issue with this one thing, but your commitment, I think, again, commending VyStar, this commitment for long arc. It's kind of long obedience in the same direction, right? Where like you keep moving and then you get toward that incrementally over time as you add partners to the table. So my admonishment is to think about that. You don't need to solve all of it with one thing. You don't need to solve all of the issues of being geocentric, very granular at the neighborhood level. But you can solve a issue within that, right? And discover through proximity what that is, but commit to the long haul. That's where the real equity and transformation in the lives of an individual, in the lives of a family, in the lives of multiple families in that neighborhood, in the lives of a district, in the lives of a city happen. When we do that, we need that more now than ever.
Thank you so much. Well, we really, really appreciate Donell, Ashley, and Alvin, and then Courtney as well for attending. Thank you all for attending as well. We'll kind of be here if you all have any questions. Really encourage you to scan the QR code to view the full study. You can drill down by the different DMAs we mentioned. And then as marketing people, we always have to bring swag. So there is some swag on your table there, and we would really love to carry less back. So feel free to grab as many of those little bags as you want as well. And thank you all again. Appreciate that.